I was so excited because I bought these Halloween sweaters and it took them like a month to get here. And I was gonna wear one of them today, but when I was putting it on, I accidentally got lipstick all over the front of it. So now I can't even wear Halloween merch. And it's October, it's spooky season. I'm supposed to be wearing Halloween, but it's fine. I will wear it next time. I will wash it. It's not the end of the world, Courtney. But hey y'all, I am back and I have more Let's Not Meet stories that I am very scared to read today. At least I'm pretty sure I have Let's Not Meet stories. I'm almost positive I sent myself some, so if this is not a Let's Not Meet story, this is gonna be awkward. Okay, yeah, I sent myself the stories. This is going to be a trigger warning because I do feel like a lot of the stories I'm about to read have something to do with sexual assault. I'm almost positive nothing actually happens in any of the stories. It's more so the fear of something happening, so that's a trigger warning for any of you. If you don't want to listen to stories that might have something to do with sexual assault, please don't watch this video. In fact, this first story they did put a trigger warning, but this story is called Finding an Apartment. Possible trigger warning for anyone sensitive or troubled by the mention of sexual assault. Nothing graphic happened nor will be described, but you deserve to know just in case. Also, if you hear something weird in the background, actually I'm gonna turn it off. I bought my cats this water fountain because apparently your cats drink more water if it's like flowing water. So I bought my cats a water fountain, but it's pretty loud, so I just turned it off. I know you don't care, but I care. I'm gonna let you know. Also feel like a lot of headspace. So we're just gonna do that. This is a story my cousin has told me since it happened about 15 years ago, give or take. I was 12 years old and she was around 18 to 20. Going to college and was looking for close but off-campus apartments. I'm gonna write this in first person because saying my cousin might get confusing. After being accepted to college and getting ready to attend in the fall, I've been looking for apartments for a few weeks. I admit I was getting kind of desperate at this point. The cheap ones had already been rented by the time I found them, others were out of my price range, whatever, the usual issues. But it was starting to get a little too close to the start of the semester, and I still had the issue of moving, finding a job, all that. I was getting impatient. I thought I'd hit the jackpot when I was at the grocery store and I saw a flyer. You know, those old school types made from random computer paper, with the top third being the ad and the bottom quarter being slips of paper with a name and phone number you could just tear off. It was advertising for an apartment and 3 dudes looking for a roommate. You got your own bedroom and bathroom and a cabinet and separate shelf in the fridge. All that was required was somebody who could pay on time and in full. I had 2 brothers and a dad I was still living with at that point. Not to mention my boyfriend who I spent a lot of time with. I was totally comfortable around guys and their mess, so living with 3 dudes was no big deal for me. The location seemed close enough to the college I was attending, and rent split 4 ways. I was sure I could afford it. It was perfect. When I got home, I immediately called the number and spoke to a guy called Dylan, who sounded friendly and chill. He explained how all 3 were going to college, and they'd been there for different amounts of time, and the reason they had a vacancy was because one guy graduated and went back home, and they needed to fill the room as soon as they could. Dylan explained to me very quickly the sort of dynamic they had, and the price, which was well in my budget. I set a time for the next day to look at the place, and we said our friendly goodbyes and hung up. My boyfriend, Theo, came over later that day, and I excitedly told him about the apartment. He didn't seem as excited as I was. I asked what he thought, and he said he was worried about me living with 3 guys I didn't know, and I joked that he was worried I would cheat. He explained that he didn't think it was safe for a girl to live with 3 strange men. I understood his concern, but I didn't think much of it myself. The next day came for me to view the place, and Theo decided to join me last minute, and I humored him. With a printed copy of the directions from MapQuest, oh my fucking god, I remember when we had to use MapQuest, that shit is old school. We headed to the apartment in Theo's car. The directions took us to a house, like an actual house, not an apartment like was advertised. I shrugged it off, lots of people rent houses. It's not uncommon, and calling it an apartment made sense to me in a way. Theo was not so sure. I headed up with confidence, Theo hanging back a bit but still near, and knocked on the bright red door nice and loud. A man in his 20s answered. He held a look of delight for maybe 2 seconds before seeing I brought Theo along. He tried to hide the look of disappointment with a forced smile. He ushered us in with a comment of, "I didn't think you were bringing anyone." I responded with a quick, "I didn't think it would be a problem." He led me from the short foyer into the living room directly ahead. 2 other guys, the same age, immediately sat up with a smile before going through the same facial expressions as their friend upon seeing Theo. I looked around the room and it was definitely a men's apartment with the mess and snacks and beer all over. But what struck me was there were 3 big floor lamps randomly placed in a living room that had a ceiling light. We had some awkward introductions and we were shown around. The cabinet that was designated to be for me was full, as was my shelf in the fridge. When I saw my private bathroom, it was evident I would be sharing that as well, and I could see the seat up, a pile of laundry on the floor, and tons of personal hygiene products on the toothpaste spattered counter. Oh, I would lose my shit. We were finally shown the bedroom, but it was more the size of a large closet and could probably barely fit a full-size mattress if it were to be the only thing in the room. I looked at Theo and shrugged, gave our tour guide a hasty, "I'll think about it," before we left. We immediately got in the car and drove off. I sighed a sigh of defeat as I was ready to hear Theo start his "I told you so's," but that never came. Instead, he mentioned the floor lamps and something I hadn't noticed. A jerry-rigged tripod with an expensive, for the time, digital camera atop it, and the 3 floor lamps. I suddenly realized the horrifying implication. It was fake. Everything. It was a trick to get unsuspecting college girls to come check out a place that wasn't up for rent in order to do God knows what. Theo suggested it was to film some sort of rape porn. Keep in mind, nowadays it probably wouldn't be unusual to see a setup like that. Anyone can make a video and post it to YouTube. But in 2005, YouTube had literally just come out that April. Shane Dawson wouldn't make his channel for another 3 years, and YouTube wouldn't become a household name until a year after that. Could they have been film majors? I mean, maybe, but the school, my school, they were attending didn't have a great art program, let alone filming. All of that was solidified in our minds when, the next day, we had my older brother call and ask about the room and if he could have a look. Dylan answered again and gruffly claimed they'd already found someone. The room was off the market before quickly hanging up. Theo and I decided to find a place together, and the rest has been great. I'll always be thankful Theo decided to come with me despite my doubts. Y'all, you gotta be fucking careful. Like, you have to be so careful. The fact that this is in 2005, I don't know, this just sounds like something that would happen now. And I feel like it would happen now. But that is absolutely fucking terrifying. And I am like beyond relieved that nothing happened to you, and I'm so thankful for Theo as well that he came. I know I'm talking to your cousin essentially right now because it's not necessarily your story, but I'm so thankful that your cousin is okay. Okay, and then this story says, he told me he loved me within half an hour of meeting me. I was 12. He was almost 18. My name's Savvy, and I'm from Northern California. I'm currently binging on your Let's Not Meet stories amidst quarantine and these crazy wildfires. Figured I would share my story. It's not as creepy as some of the other ones I've read, yet still puts a bad taste in my mouth to this day 15 years later. The story takes place in 2005. What the fuck? I was 12 years old at the time. My family wanted to take a vacation, and my mom and ex-stepdad decided it would be fun to take a cruise along the California coast with my 3 younger siblings and myself. As our ship made its way under the Golden Gate Bridge, my mom and I stood up on the balcony to see San Francisco and the ocean beyond us. On the balcony to the right of her, a teenage boy emerged, presumably to take in the same view we were. My mom gave him a polite hello when they made awkward eye contact, and he struck up a conversation with her. I wasn't paying any attention at first, but then I heard him ask my mom, "Do you have any sisters?" I saw him peer over at me, clearly taking interest. Me, being a shy 12-year-old, tried to hide from his gaze behind my mother's side. My mom joked that she has 2 sisters, but they're probably much too old for him. They exchanged some polite small talk after that, which I didn't listen to, instead taking in the view of the sunset over San Francisco and the Pacific. We went about our separate ways for the evening. Over the next couple of days, we always seemed to be running into this boy and his family. My mother's an extremely friendly person, so she would always talk with them. His parents seemed nice enough. The boy would always look at me intensely. By that point in my life, I was still developing my first crushes on boys in my school. I sure as hell didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what his fixation on me implied, just that it made me feel as if he was seeing right through me. I avoided his stares by staying near my siblings, almost out of an instinctive protectiveness. On the 5th day of our trip, my mom came in and this boy wanted to meet and hang out with us. She said his name was Asher. I thought he was weird and didn't really want to, but I was always taught to give people the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps my discomfort was me being judgmental, I thought. I reluctantly agreed, and eventually he was in our hotel room. My mom gave me this smile and raised her eyebrows as if she was playing matchmaker. She then went into her room, which was connected to ours. Asher was very odd right off the bat, and immediately my siblings and I were extremely uncomfortable. We were watching Scary Godmother on Cartoon Network, and I awkwardly asked if he wanted to watch something else. He probably thought the cartoons were stupid. He said he didn't mind as long as he got to talk to me. My eldest brother immediately picked up on my body language and what he said, so he joined in on the conversation to put me at ease. Asher had an accent. I couldn't tell if he was foreign or if it was a speech impediment. A lot of what he said I couldn't quite pick up on, and he would sometimes lean over to me and say something quietly that, although I couldn't hear or understand, I knew I didn't like it. We spent the next while making awkward small talk about school, and he asked me about his graduation coming up next summer. I asked if he was graduating junior high. No, he meant high school. He then revealed to me he would be turning 18 that December. Sirens immediately started going off in my head, and then he hands me a note that he had written for me earlier. With my hand shaking, I open a note that reads, "I love you, you are hot." I guess my brother saw the note from over my shoulder and went over to our parents' room and then came back and said, "Hey, our parents said we had to go to dinner." Asher took that as his cue to leave, but he told me he loves me one more time before his exit. That is so, oh my god, that is so fucking weird. That is so fucking weird. I gave him a shaky, okay. My brother went to make sure I was okay and told me he had only pretended to go to our parents' room because he didn't want to get our mom in trouble with our ex-stepdad for inviting him. I know this logic seems weird, but please remember we were all just kids. I was trembling and silent for a while. I didn't really understand what had happened. All I knew is that I felt violated and confused. We later told our mom what happened, and she looked extremely guilty. She thought he was younger and that he had good intentions. She thought it would be a good idea for me to meet friends closer to my age because I was stuck babysitting all the time. Turns out, for some dumb reason, my mother had given him our home phone number before he had hung out with us. I was livid, but too timid to speak up. I'd managed to avoid Asher for the rest of our trip, aside from on the loading docks on the final day. He said goodbye, that he loved me, and he would call me every day before leaving. He left before I could tell him not to. He called almost every week for 4 months after that, leaving strange and cryptic messages on our answering machine. Every time we would block his number, he managed to call from a new one. I'd accidentally picked up a couple times, not knowing it was him, and would immediately hang up, only for him to call 3 more times and leave the same strange messages. After a year, he finally gave up and stopped calling. So Asher from the cruise, I may be old enough for you now, but please, let's not ever meet again, you creep. And then there's a TLDR that says, met a boy on a cruise who my mom thought was younger and invited him to hang out when I was 12. Turned out to be a 17-year-old trying to get into 12-year-old me's pants and wrote a note telling me he loved me. Kept saying creepy things until my brother saved the day. He had our phone number and called us nonstop for about a year before finally giving up. Oh my god. Did he know how old you were? Like, I wonder if he had no idea, but I feel like he had to have had an idea, because like, when you're 12, you look 12, especially in 2005. I know nowadays girls look way older than they are, but like back in 2005, you could tell that we were like little kids, because in 2005, I was 10, and you could tell that I was 10, and so I feel like he had to have known that you were a child, a literal child. So that is a big no-no for me. Okay, I have 2 more stories I want to read. This one says, the guy who I once served coffee to, then wished I never served him again. First and foremost, hi Courtney, my name is Alex and I'm 17. Most definitely new to this kind of storytelling, but I figured I would share some of my creepy stories. Sorry if this is long. For some background info, I work at a small cafe. We sell coffee, food, etc. You get it. I'm one of the youngest waitresses, so I'm usually out of the deck, talking, bringing coffee and food to the customers. So I'm fairly aware of the regulars and who is who. But somehow this seemed different. I was put on till due to lack of staff, so I took this older guy's order for a takeaway coffee. It wasn't the first time I took his order, so I didn't really think anything of it at first. But this time he swiftly asked me when my shift was finished and how old I was. When I mentioned I had just turned 17 and that I didn't know when my shift ended, he got angry. Like, irritated at my answers. So after he had taken his coffee, I was called to take out food, so I did. Meanwhile, the guy watched my literal every move without my knowledge. Later, my coworker, we'll call her Kat, pulled me aside asking if I knew the guy personally, and when I said I didn't, her face paled. After that, I went on my shift like normal. Getting ready to leave, I waved my coworkers goodbye and headed out to the back parking lot, where my car sat. As I reached for my keys, I looked up to see an empty takeaway coffee cup sat on the hood of my car. Instantly, I inhaled to myself, knowing I hadn't put it there, so instinctively, I carefully bent down to look under my car, only to see the same creepy guy I served coffee to earlier that day laying under my car. There's a reason I wanted to read this story, and I'll get into that after this, but we're gonna read the rest of it first. See, I'm small, like 4'10" small, so I instantly made my way back into the cafe, motioning to one of the chefs, Dan, who was a big guy, buff, to make him come help me. After hearing what had happened so far, he had walked me back to my car, but before I could make it towards my car, he stopped me, walking ahead so his feet were right in front of my car. The next thing he did made me laugh, even if I was terrified. He took his open-palmed hands and smacked them roughly against the hood of my car before raising his voice, "If you don't move in 2 seconds." Instantly, the dude crawled from underneath my car and sprinted towards the road. Dan, being the good man he is, turned to me, mentioning he had called the cops on the same guy months ago for apparent kidnapping and sex trafficking. So to the creepy guy I served coffee to and then decided to try and kidnap me, let's not meet again. The reason I wanted to read that story is because I feel like I hear this like new thing. I don't know if it's new, but if somebody knows that you are alone, or if they see you get out of your car and they know which car belongs to you, I don't know exactly, I'm not a kidnapper, but people will lay underneath your car so they can slice your Achilles heel, because apparently if you slice it, like, you cannot run, you are incapable of moving. And so they'll lay underneath your car, so when you go to get in your car, they will slice you and like kidnap you. And I wanted to read that because that's like exactly what this man, I'm assuming, was trying to do. If not, I don't know why he's under your car, because I don't know where that's gonna get him other than ran over. But I wanted to read that because I just want to say, like, be fucking careful. Please be careful. Check under your car from a distance. Like, I don't know. It's so scary nowadays. And this was in 2000, or no, this wasn't in 2005. I don't know how recent this one was. The other two stories were in 2005. But this is scary, and this is shit that really happens. So just please be careful. For the love of God, please be careful. Okay, and this last one says, I had to cut a rapist/murderer's hair in cosmetology school. This happened about 6 months ago. I was about halfway through my hours in cosmetology school and was taking clients. It was a regular Friday afternoon, and I was getting ready for my last client that I had scheduled. The book said his name was Tim, and he was a new guest that had never been to the school before. I went to get Tim when he checked in, and the first thing he said to me was, I ran all the way here for you. I ran all the way here for you on Wednesday too, but they said you were busy. I was like, what the fuck? So I just laughed and thought maybe he was crazy or something. Then things got weird. Tim had these piercing blue eyes, and the only way I can describe him is he looked like some kind of alien that skin was too tight over his face. His appearance alone freaked me out. Have you ever seen Gerald's Game? The guy was very similar to the creepy fuck in that movie. I have seen the movie, and I'm pretty sure I know exactly who you're talking about. Then he started talking. He said, and I quote, I have a twin brother that lives down in Georgia. I went to go live with him for a while, but I had to run away because all the cops kept accusing me of breaking into homes and raping a bunch of women. So I ran all the way to Daytona Beach, Florida, but I couldn't stay there long either because all the police there kept trying to shoot me. So I ended up running all the way back here to town. To you. Needless to say, I cut his hair pretty fucking fast just to get him to leave. I was beyond freaked out at this point, and when he was checking out, he said, I'll be back again for you, Savannah. At that point, I told all the staff that if this man ever comes back, I will refuse to do a service on him. Come to find out later, a local news station released a story about a man that got out of the penitentiary after 23 years for raping and murdering an 18-year-old girl when he was 15. It was a cold case for 16 years until they reopened the case and they arrested this man. And then I saw this mugshot and it was Tim. A fake name, and I started bawling. To this day, I still look over my shoulder and have nightmares about him. He literally shook me to my core. Side note, a big fuck you to my coaches that did nothing to help me in that situation. When they literally tell us if we're uncomfortable, we don't have to finish and they will take over. Just because I could handle it doesn't mean I should have to. P.S. Courtney, I fucking love you. And then she actually linked the news article, so I will have the story link down below, so if you guys want to go look at the news article, it'll be down there. Every time I film these videos, I'm just even more fearful of the world and all of the people in it. But I'm so glad every single one of you is okay and nothing happened. Like, I know it's traumatizing, the things that did happen to you, but I'm glad that nothing more happened, if that makes sense. Get my collar all fixed for the outro, but I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any more stories that you would like to share with me or the community, I will have the subreddit link down below. It seems to be working just fine, but if you're not able to post on that, I will also have my email written down below. You can send Let's Not Meet, stalker stories, paranormal, anything scary, spoopies, go ahead and send it. But other than that, I'm gonna go. I love y'all. I will see you in the next one. Bye! I feel like I'm not speaking English today. Like, I feel like I keep fumbling my words, and so I really hope that you can understand me in this video. I get paranoid about that. I get so paranoid when I'm filming that, like, I'm gonna be editing and it's not gonna be English. Like, no one's gonna understand a word that I'm saying. And I've been trying to work on talking slower because I know I talk super fast, and I feel like I'm talking really fast right now. I'm trying to work on it, but it's really hard when you just naturally speak a certain way, and so I'm just paranoid all the time about my speech. So, that's fun. But okay, see ya!